Down.
Look up. Phase 7 was becoming popular in America, getting a band together and coming over here when I least expected it, playing to a club which held 300 people, and becoming a national hero in England because I played this club. We sort of broke from playing a 300-seater club, which was ludicrous. Quite unexpected. That was a complete shock. The things that always seem to happen are always when you least expect them, which is nice. That's why I like this industry, because you're never certain about anything. And then that comes the hard part, maintaining. We've put out, I think, about 12 albums in 6 years, which is a pretty high standard because we want to stick to our contract. So many groups fall behind contracts and then have to do 4 or 5 albums before they can in England. But now it's funny. It's my most requested album, and it's the biggest seller in the catalogue. But initially, that was the big crossroads. After that album came out, it still did, it was a gold album, etc., etc., but the danger signs were up. So I mean, you always have to be one step ahead of everyone else. You have to know, you have to follow what I've always followed, what's down in my stomach, and you know what's right. And there was time for a change, and up to that point we were 3 people on stage: Nigel, Dee and myself. And we had to, at that point I knew I had to change and go in a bit of a different direction and add Davey. So that's the beginning of phase 7, I think, adding Someone After the Madman Across the Water album. I think that phase has lasted us up to the present day, when we're at a crossroads, because after Yellow Brick Road came out, which I thought was a pretty good album for a double album, it's very hard to make good double albums, and then we followed it with Caribou, which was a weaker album, Time for Another Change. So there's lots of phases. I mean, I can even break them down into smaller phases than that, but each one, you know when the time is right to change. At least I do. I just follow what's inside me. You start writing a song. Some days you get an idea and you think, oh God, I can just go and sit on the piano and write a song, and it comes out. Other you go for weeks and months, and then something will hit you. And if I've got lyrics on the piano, I'll write a song.
Is there any normal amount of time it normally takes you to write a song?
Usually about 30 minutes.
30 minutes?
If I haven't written it by 30 minutes, if I haven't got something going, like a good chord sequence, I'll give it up and come back later. Give it up and come back another day. I've just written one song called Chameleon, which I wrote actually for the Beach Boys. Whether they'll do it or not, I don't know. But that took me 6 months. That's a unique song for me. I got 1 line in Denver and 2 lines in Hawaii, which is the way most writers usually work. You know, they get odd lines from here. They like to get stuck into one thing. It's like when we release a single, we'll release something out of left field, like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and then follow it up with Philadelphia Freedom. I like to take gambles because I like to see what goes and what doesn't go. And that's, as I say, it's the fun of not knowing. People say, well, you can put out anything and it'll be a hit. It's not true. People won't buy garbage. Or if they do buy garbage, the next time you put something out, they'll think, well, I got burnt once, perhaps I won't do it again. So you have to be on your toes, and it's always interesting to see what people like and don't like. I've been accused of sort of selling out and becoming commercial and popular. That's no fault of mine. I've always, from that day that Steve Brown said, write something from the, that you feel, I've always done that, and we're really lucky. In fact, it's mind-boggling and quite amusing, but it seems to get bigger and bigger.
The traditional hope among a lot of composers is to write the standard, a song that is not only enjoyable.
More songs from the Guy Mitchell era and the Frankie Lane era than I can say, in relativity to the things that are coming out now, because everybody's writing, and so it has to be more disposable. People say, well, write your own song, have your own song on the B-side because you make more money out of it. So that's what I meant about pop music being disposable. Standards, as far as that goes, you can't predict any cover versions. We used to at the beginning, but we don't now. But people like Carole King and Sedaka and definitely Stevie Wonder, I mean, they're the people that write the standards.
You've given your lyricist, Bernie Taupin, a great, or do you work together, or separately, or what?
We used to work together a lot. The Elton John album, the Empty Sky album, Tumbleweed, all those songs, because we were living in the same apartment, I would go into another room. We would never collaborate at the piano, but at least we'd be in the same place, and I could play him a song before we ever recorded it. Now he sends me lyrics or gives me lyrics, and he never hears them until they're recorded, from the Honky Chateau album onwards. So it's been that way. He never comes to recording sessions because there's nothing for him to do. He likes to come and
Beatles that have made, I think, permanent and lasting contributions to music. Do you think you're in that category now, or going to go there, or what?
Well, they make contributions. It's a matter of thinking how long the songs will last. It's all down to the disposable bit again. Will people be singing rock and roll is to see somebody singing things that they did 25 years ago or 20 years ago and singing them badly with just a band they picked up. That's not for me. I'm a perfectionist in that. You have to know when you consider what the Beatles wrote, all the songs that they've written, we've got a long way to go yet. They've written some amazing songs and lasting qualities.
What aspect or aspects of your profession do you least enjoy? Biggest fear now?
I don't have any fears, apart from flying. I don't like flying very much. I don't have any fears. I'm realistic about things to know that, I mean, all of a sudden my career could plunge downwards. I mean, it's at a peak, and as I said before, it gets bigger every year, which is silly.
When you say it's silly,
it's silly humour. I mean, I can't, you know, it's incomprehensible to me, because, I mean, I have to go about things in a light-hearted sort of way. I like to retain a sense of humour about things, and things just mind-boggle me. But you have to retain a sense of humour about it and brush it aside, otherwise you might start believing it. I mean, I know what I'm capable of, but it just mind-boggles. It's mind-boggling to see how many records you sell, and it's incredible. So I haven't got any fear of being a failure, because I've been a failure already before I was a success. And I mean, as long as I'm a musician and I'm involved with music, you know, or a record company, or I could even work in a record store. As long as I got records around me, I wouldn't mind.
You're only a piano player. Don't shoot me, right? Are you always going to be just only wants to be like you? What would you tell him?
We'll have to get a pair of glasses first. No, seriously. If he has to have incredible ambition and drive, that's number one. I'm one of the. Also, I mean, you have to be prepared to go through 4 or 5 years of perhaps not making it, and having people around you that can help you and give you encouragement. I had my mother, and I had, you know, some really good friends. And if you want to get into this business, you're going to go through some really bad things. You're going to get
still fascinated with Americana. Elton is
superstar.
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
We overlapped on that. Is that okay?
Build them and to guide them. It becomes harder along the way, and really not easier as the outward success grows. It becomes more difficult for them because you know, becoming constantly more criticised. People are looking more closely at their songs, at Elton's records. Is it as good as the last one? Is comparing, you know, this album to 3 albums ago? So it becomes constantly more difficult.
They have produced an enormous amount of music in a very short period of time, the business. He follows it. Could you talk about that?
Yes. He follows the music industry, the music business, and the music that's going on. He's aware of every aspect of that. Elton won an award this year in one of the trade magazines as a trendsetter. Normally that award is given to people in the business sense of the industry because of their contribution. Elton won it because of his awareness of what is going on. He can putting it on, and there's always music in the house or in the hotel room, or when he comes into the office, there's music going on all the time. He has a jukebox in Los Angeles and one in England, which a 45 record, a new release is put on there, and he writes it on the little card, and it's all put in there, and he knows each record that's in. And then one record is cataloged in England, and one is cataloged in the States. And those are kept there, and he has a complete selection, and he has every record that's ever been put out. I guess for the past 5 years since he's been doing his collecting, his avid collecting of it.
What about his awareness of the business end of the music industry?
Oh, well, the business end. He in England, if he's there, he gets them over the wire from what's going on in America. If he's in America, he gets them here, and also the ones that are coming in England. His new album, his new single, also the artists that are on our record company. If he wanted to right now, he could tell you exactly how much money he has earned on his greatest hits album, because he knows what his royalty rate is. He would get out a little computer and he would compute it up and say, I've earned this much money. This is how much the record company MCA has earned. He knows exactly what the breakdown is. He's totally aware of what it costs to put out an album, what the artist earns, and the same thing in his performances. He knows how many people are going to see him when he goes to play a performance. He knows what the ticket price is, and in the end, he finds out what the gross is and what his net is. He knows exactly how much money he earns on a tour. So it isn't a situation where an artist, in the end of, say, 3 years, doesn't know if he's earned any money or not. I mean, it's wonderful because he's aware of all of that, not to the point of being obsessed with it, but it's like any other.
Why have Bernie and Elton been so successful? What's the chemistry? Is there a secret or a formula to it?
But, you know, nobody knows nowadays what's a classic book, you know. There's nobody that sort of actually defines what's a classic book. That's what it's like with music, you know. To me, you know, the majority of popular music is disposable because there's so much of it. You know, it's just being churned out weekly. If you look at the number of singles and albums that are released every week, there's so much of it that I think within a year of popular music, there's probably 2 classics, you know, that will be played in 10 years' time.
Which raises another point about the dilution of music, a dilution of rock.
Everybody changes, obviously. I mean, I don't believe anybody when they say that success doesn't change you. It changes you, but not necessarily for the worst. I mean, it can change you for the better, you know. As far as Elton's concerned, his basic attitude and his basic lifestyle has always been to what he can, not to what he can afford, but to what he can cope with, you know. And he always coped. No, he hasn't changed that much. He's still the same old regular guy.
Right. Obviously, you complement each other as far as a songwriting team, but obviously you also have differences. What are the differences between you?
I don't know if we've got a lot of. There's a lot of things about us that we're very much the same. You know, like we both have passions for records and books. You know, like he'll go out and buy stacks of records, and I'll go out and buy stacks of records, and that's our biggest thing is our record collections and our book collections. We love collecting, both of us. You know, we're very much the same like that.
The speed of it?
Yeah, I always wait for, you know, somebody to call up tomorrow and say, your record sales have just dropped, you're dead, you know. And I think the thing is, you know, I think that like Elton and I, you know, I think that's his strongest point.
Could he take it if he was shot?